Welcome to another exciting episode as we explore the expertise of David Spicer, also recognized as Doc Spice. A distinguished permaculture expert celebrated for his innovative and cost-effective designs. With a focus on water harvesting, regenerative farming, and diverse landscapes, Doc Spicer's insights are a treasure trove of actionable wisdom.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast, and today we've got Dave Spicer. So Dave, tell us a bit about yourself.
G'day guys. Well, look, I'm a jack of all trades, mastering some, I say now. But I'm a permaculture designer, but I specialise in earthworks. I operate excavators and install the design. So design to reality, I say. So I sort of primarily focus on that. I really think there's a power in design because we work with water, and then we're not conflicting against the patterns of water, which is the patterns of nature. And in the end, what I say I do is I observe patterns in landscapes, and then I apply another set of specific patterns on top of that, really in relation to human habitat. I've found over time good access on broadacre properties is good interaction. If we can't access it, we don't really interact with it. And when we start to interact with it, we engage and we observe, and then we let our site demonstrate its evolution, because we can put ourselves in a place of comfort so we can open our minds to see landscape instead of just racing across it. So that's really what I do. I build the bones of the system, whether that's through water and access, and then structure, position, and infrastructure. So I've done many different things before I come to what I do in permaculture design. I worked in the building game and forestry and horticulture, agriculture, steel fabrication. So jack of the trades, mastering some, I say, mate. Yeah.
They used to call that a farmer, didn't they?
Yeah, well, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Yeah. You know, it's a diverse skill set's really important, you know.
Yeah, that's it, 100%. Yeah. So, I mean, you touched on a few things there. So, you know, with permaculture, it's about designing with water, access, and structure. So, what's the reason we design with water in mind first? Like, what's the reason you start with that?
Well, if we don't design with water in mind, we've got continuous problems. We've got, when we have a big rain event, look at the number of driveways that have just been cut in without the appropriate drainage or shape. How much money does that cost people in maintenance of a road? So if we get our road in the right place, but the only place we can put that road in is when we look at the water. And if we can manage the water from the top of the system or the landscape down through the site, we can ideally store water above our infrastructure. So then we get gravity-fed water for free, in a sense, no pumps. And that's gold when you can turn the tap on a site. Anyone who's gone off grid knows when they can turn the tap and get running water. That's actually a huge milestone. So looking at water, storing water up in the landscape, in pondage, but also creating, what I found is we all like to live around water. So let's create a view with water. Water is the ultimate thermal mass, so we can really regulate climate, the local climate with a water body. So if we can place water around our habitat, it's a more moderate temperature, and it's a beautiful thing to look on. And then once we've got our water worked out, and then our house is not flooding or water's not coming through the house, we can give it the appropriate drainage. But also getting that access that fits on the landscape and also has a relationship to water harvesting, because a gravel road runs off 85% of the water. So, and if you do a bit of math on a road at 3 meters wide by, let's take 1 square meter, 10 mil of rain on a square meter is 10 litres. That's a lot of water, particularly if you're in a dry landscape. So we can look at roads and roofs as hardware, and where do we plug that hardware into our software, which is our sponges. And then once we've got water and access, then we actually got another layer to come in and put our infrastructure in. Now, whether that's water lines for irrigation or whatever, or power, however we want to do it, electric fencing. But it's a layer upon a layer. And once you've got that, it's a basic mainframe. And then you can go zones and sectors, which are a bit more, sectors are your wild energies. So, where's your fire, where's your flood, etc. So once you've got this sort of mainframe, it takes away the splatter in design, because you've got the edges to work from.
Yeah. So, can you give some examples of some things you've seen go wrong with a bad design over the years, or so if I was buying a property, going through what am I looking for? Some things that you can see.
Yeah, good point, mate. Look, ideally, if you can get yourself into the mid slope of the landscape, or up off the valley floor, well, then you're out of flood. You certainly don't want to go on top of the hill. I know people do for the view, but then you got wind and you got fire, and you always got to have water pumping to you. So if we can get in the mid slope between the lower sort of slope and the mid slope, then we've got the potential to store water above us. But we're out of the cold because cold air sinks. We can often pick up a thermal belt, which is a more moderate climate. So having a gentle form, like people buy steep bits of land, like steep slope, which means you have to put everything out on terraces to be able to garden or crop it. So it makes it awkward. Yeah. So having a look at that sort of gentle landscape, up off the valley floor but not on the ridge, is really the ideal sort of situation. Yeah. And so, like a forested watershed is another big one. Actually having some sort of forested system where your catchment comes from, because your water quality is much better.
So you're saying make sure you get trees above you?
Yeah, if you can. I mean, it's not always possible, but just think of how much cleaner that water flow is going to be moving through your property.
Yeah, no, definitely. So if I'm looking at buying a block of land, how do you see some telltale signs of some bad design work already? Just by looking at the landscape, what's some things you look for to say, look, this is going to cause us issues? Because if I'm going to buy a block of land off grid, I really maybe a couple of hours to have a look at the property with a real estate agent. What would you be looking for?
Yeah, look, if there's nothing on it, then it's a clean slate. When you're sort of trying to retrofit, it makes it a bit more difficult. Look at erosion patterns. You can look at into trees. You can sort of in the last few years, so if they're burnt. You can, along fences, you can look at debris deposits from floods. So it'll pick up in fences. Look at any little bits of erosion. Are you going to have problems? How much is it going to cost you to sort these erosion problems out? If there's a road, where's the drainage? Look at retrofitting, existing dams, how you connect them to a bigger catchment or overflow them onto another dam. Really, it's having somewhat accessible. I had a wealthy client, and he was looking at buying property, and he kept sending me these properties. And he said, look, it's all timbered because, as we know, property price of timber has skyrocketed. And he said, it's all timbered. I said, yeah, but most of that timber is still there because I can't access it. It's too steep. So look at your contour map. Even though they're just a guide, don't trust them until you get out there and survey, for me anyway. But look at, if you want a mill in the future off your property, how can you access it, What sort of access can you put on top of it to utilise the property? Because if you can't access it, it just goes into a zone 5. And then if there's no management, then it becomes a fire issue, and you sort of get burn out. Yeah.
So have you ever had a situation where you maybe looked at a property, or someone's purchased a property, there's a lot of bad erosion, you've had to put a whole new driveway in and come from somewhere else?
Sometimes it's cheaper to terminate a driveway and bring it in on the right sort of pattern, so you actually work with the landscape, and also remember what I said before about that water that road having a relationship to water, so that can actually run a lot of water off into a high dam, ideally. What I often look for is there a road above the property, and has that where does that water run off the road into the property? Because that means I've got potentially a really high dam with good runoff area for gravity-fed water. So that's one of the things I really look for is high water. Can I put a dam up high that gives me gravity-fed water? And what can I charge it with? I've sort of gone away from the classic model of swale. And so I sort of look at, I've done a few gradient roads in my time, which are quite interesting. So it's a road with a slight fall to a dam. So it picks up all the water coming off the ridges and runs it around into a dam. And they work great because they give you access, but also a water harvesting capacity. Yeah.
So when you're talking about access, are you talking about mainly just putting a driver into the property, or what else do you mean when you talk about access?
Well, it's a bit like in a permaculture context, a lot of people go swale. Where I've actually changed my mode a bit to a more of a terraced form, so that terrace could be on a level or could have a slight fall, so it runs water. But that terrace gives me actually access through the landscape. I can still put tree systems along it, like a swale along the edge, or like along the berm edge, or the mound, but I can still access it, and that gives me access across landscape. That gives me potentially a laneway for running livestock, and then that's easy for me, or easy to create cells off that laneway, run your water, so you've got irrigation or for your stock watering points. So it helps to pattern out the landscape. And as I said, good interaction. Good access is good interaction. If we don't observe and we don't interact, well, we don't learn. So, it's not just a driveway. It's more about, having a central driveway to your infrastructure and from your access to your infrastructure. But what can you take off that driveway? So you can come down and shoot off on a contour or whatever you want to do, but so you can interact with the landscape, and then, come around a valley, drop back down onto a ridge, and you can almost circuit around the site. And think of, once you've got that circuit, if you run water around that, lay a pipe, well, then you've got all water through the heart of the property, in a sense. So to establish orchards, like I said, for grazing livestock, etc., it just simplifies it.
Yep. Now, so I got one for you. So I'm looking at the property myself at the moment, and I'll share this. So do you want to maybe explain to people what contour layers mean and what they do for people to understand? Yep. This is just coming up here.
Cool.
There we go.
Yeah. So you go or me?
Yeah. So explain the contour layers and.
All right. Well, if you look at Mike's picture there, and you can see the lovely little coloured lines. So each shade of that colour is representing a height that is higher than sea level. So the red going to the yellow, goes to the green, to the light blue, to the dark blue. That's lower down in the landscape, and as you see from the picture, it's quite flat when you get to where the trees are and the nice open paddocks down there. So I can look at that and go, right, well, I've got a ridge because it runs around it. So, and a valley comes back up into the boundary, in a sense. So it tells me where water flows. Water flows right angle to contour. Don't get too. Sometimes it's very hard to see contour. What I do when I teach an earthworks course is actually get people out and survey it, because that gives them the physical reality of and they also learn, don't trust contour maps, because they go, that contour goes like that. But then when I survey it, it doesn't go like that. It's just a guide, remember, but it tells me the form of the landscape. It tells me, it's like your knuckles here. I've got a valley down that runs down there, another valley here, and that's the ridge. So that's when I look at Mike's picture there, it's a little bit like my knuckles here, because it's got a ridge, a valley, another ridge, a valley, and a bigger valley, like the primary valley. and then another primary ridge that goes right around there. But I can tell that from that, looking at that, that's where the water's going to run down there. So that's a watershed and that's the water catchment. So it helps me identify where potential flooding is going to come from, where I can place a dam, where it's more likely going to have good clay deposits for that dam, and also where can I, the wider the contours go apart, the flatter it is. The steeper the contours together, the steeper it is. Okay, so as soon as they start to go wider, I know the landscape is getting gentle enough to be able to come around on a contour parallel with them lines.
Yeah. So with this block of land, I talked about before, a steeper block of land where this is pretty much completely flat out the front. What would you recommend on something like this? Some things you could do to improve this type of land? And so this is literally the beach. It's 900 meters to the beach, so it's really sandy.
Yeah. Well, look, I think what I'd look at doing initially is I often see eucalypt forests as very degraded systems. And there's this thing called senescence, and that's when like trees actually start to touch in their canopy. They actually just sit and go stagnant. And often there's very little diversity underneath these eucalypt forests. So to start to cycle some of that material down, put it onto the ground, cut it up with a chainsaw. It's a bit of work. That actually reduces the fire load because the fungal hyphae comes up in there and holds the moisture. That actually, you go through it and selectively thin the rubbish trees out, or take your firewood off, fence posts, polewood, some saw logs potentially. But that enhances the forest. It also creates a sponge high up in the landscape. So you could start working that down the system. I'd look at putting some higher dams in them two valleys to give myself gravity-fed water.
So you're talking up here?
Yep. I can't see your cursor.
Right at the back, sort of where it goes.
Yeah, right up the back. Yeah. You got sort of two valleys in there. One primary valley. I'd put a dam up in there. And if you can go like 8 meters, a little bit higher is better. But 8 meters gives you like mains pressure. So that's then you've got irrigation. And you also got to think of high dams as you place a tank up high. Well, that could be $3,000 to $5,000. Well, you could build a small dam 4 or 5 times the size of that tank by building a dam that has longevity. So think about that as a water storage. I'd be putting it out. Is there actual water course through there? There is, isn't there? Or not? Yeah, where you got the dam, I can see there's probably a little bit of erosion in there. Do some like leaky weirs, which I'm not sure if your readers be familiar with Peter Andrews' stuff. Basically, we've got to be the Aussie beaver and start constructing these leaky weirs to create a set of like pondage through the landscape. They're not sealed like a dam, but they create a deposition system. So we're holding the fertility in the landscape, because often what we've done is we've drained everything, okay, to farm. And where does our nutrient go? Like water is the ultimate medium. Everything, almost everything dissolves in water and moves in water. So if we can create deposition systems, like gutters on our house, if we can create gutters on our house, like across the landscape, we created deposition systems. I often say we only got to take one step in the right direction and nature takes 10. And that one step for me is generally planting the rain. And that's by creating deposition. So I'd pattern that out. I'd define your water course, where your access comes in, and then I'd pattern it out on some sort of probably keyline form. So you still got production. You can put tree systems in, but you can still crop in between. It depends on your context.
Yeah. So explain a bit more about keyline form. Like, what do you mean by that?
Well, keyline is again looking at that contour lines or contour, your form of your landscape. And often it's about pushing water from the valley out to the ridge. But one of the really important, and I'm no expert on keyline, I certainly have a good generalist comprehension of it, But one of the things I like about Keylon is it's easy to fence around, because if you're going to bring in animals or you're going to fence off sections, you do contour, then you've got a strainer. Every time you bend, you've got to have a strainer and a stay, or a set of stays. So Keylon gives you parallel geometries with tree systems, and you can do that in block work. And it's more efficient. You can do a tree system and then you can do a crop, you know. You can look at some of the stuff coming out with Syntropic Ag, which has become well known, and that's often laid out on the Keylon system. And it's all just about looking at your contour, working out the best way, how it fits on the landscape. How can you section up these blocks? Yeah. So,
what's going on in this picture here?
All right, so this is actually at Permaculture Sydney Institute, and this is on I was doing a couple of days' work this is up on the Upper McDonald River.
The Hawkesbury.
Yeah, the Hawkesbury, yeah. And it's a really gnarly ridge, rocky ridge, really quite steep around the other side. Now, Penny, she wanted to put tree systems on there, but to access it, it was, well, you know, it was pretty awkward. And to put a ladder on there and actually try to pick a piece of fruit, you could end up down there bottom pretty quickly. So what I've done is I come in and put terraces in. And so the terrace still has a tilt in it, so the water sits in here, so it still acts like a swale. But it gives you can drive your little 4-wheeler or whatever around it, or you can push a wheelbarrow around it, put tree systems on the berm. So that's gone from a watershed, because it's all sort of a sandstone rocky ridge. So everything's running off that ridge. It's always dry, okay? So what we've done is we've run 2 terraces around it, and that's like a Keylon because they're parallel. Okay, 2 terraces around it. So that's created a deposition system. That would totally change the hydraulics of that bit of landscape. And giving you access, it was a bit useless. Yeah, you could graze it, but now she can put tree systems on it. So it's gone from a watershed to a deposition system, and that's a swale around the bottom of it as well, which was done years ago. If you look just below the mirror on the excavator, there's actually a road, an access coming down there. Now there's already a bit of erosion going on. So what we intend to do is put a pipe, pick up the water from the top side of the road, and shoot it through underneath the road into the top terrace. That can overflow into the next terrace. That's the other advantage about doing these sorts of works, is we can take water from one point, bring it around a dry ridge, and then have it back flood and overflow where we want it. It's sort of the difference between putting it on a fall with a diversion drain or a gradient road. We can only spill that water one way, whereas when we go on a level, we can hold 150 mil of water in it, and we can choose where that overflows.
Yeah. So, mate, on this flat bit of land here, so would you recommend like swales on a flat bit of land? Like, what do you recommend with that there? Like, what would you do?
Well, like, you know, I don't know if I would. I just I'd probably, what I'd look at doing is, yeah, if you want to push water one way to a dry point, okay, but why not lay it out on a basic pattern, this sort of keyline pattern? And depending on what you wanted to do, but I mean, what would you want to put livestock in it? Would you want to graze it? Well, as in, would you want to crop it, or tree systems, or?
Well, so ideally with this project here, it's actually become an eco village. So
so it's about human habitat. So then access is critical. So what I would do is look at your water system. Where's your drainage? Because we have to work with the water system. Okay. So how can we create a little pondage? Where can we get a dry point to cross that pondage or that valley? Lay out your access, because we want, if it's for human habitat, we want good access. But then people probably want to be able to look onto a view of water, you know, a set of ponds. So I'd look at that valley system, and I'd do a series of ponds down that valley system, and then I'd have access that comes through in between the 2 dams that you've got to drawn there, and then down either side, you could come up like a little cul-de-sac and actually pattern out your housing so you've got your little habitat. And that's sort of one of the things I wanted to touch on today. Really was I see huge need for what I'm terming building our lifeboats. Because what I found is like to developing or retrofitting this old house was creating that outdoor space where we've got a view of water. I look out my window in the kitchen, I can see my dam down the bottom. I've got another dam out the back with my outdoor kitchen area. So I can sit there and I can look on water. And when I look on water, well, there's life comes to water. So I've created a view. And then we've got fruit trees and nut trees around it, and we've got gardens. So it's a comfortable space to be in. And that's good for your mind, you know. I think this is the things that we need to get back to, creating this, as Zach Bush, Dr. Zach Bush, you might be familiar with, but he says, breathe your biome. So we need these tree systems and life systems around to actually inform our bodies to how to deal with toxins and all these sorts of things. But, you know, grapes, well, that's a picture of my grape there. Well, I've got grapes 4 months of the year. You know, I've got 3 varieties of grapes, but they shade the house so I don't get any direct sun on me north and northwest side of the house. Like first couple of years, I grew pumpkins, you know. I got pumpkins, but I got shade. So bringing these life systems into the house to fortify it, you know, make it more comfortable, more enjoyable. It's more economical because when we're not paying more for electricity, you know.
Yeah.
All these things, you know.
Yeah. Mate, the Grapevine's a good example. So my house in Seven Hills, we literally had at the front of the veranda, had grapevine all over the front, but mainly down the western side, I had running bamboo.
Mm-hmm.
And with a huge hedge out the front, it was a really clay, muddy driveway, and we concreted it. So we put lots of trees up, tried to create lots of shade for summer, and everything was deciduous, so it was gone. I had that heat sink at the front of the house in winter. And we sold the house. Mate, we used to use like 6 to 10 kilowatt hours a day. It was great.
Yeah.
And the guy that brought it, he basically, chopped all the bamboo down, everything. And I can actually still see the data of that house and the solar energy being used. And energy went through the roof. And he called me a couple of months later saying, mate, all this, you know, it's not what it used to be. And I said, you've cut everything down. All the trees, everything that the house, the nature just used to work with things. And he was like, yeah, but it didn't look good. All these leaves are everywhere. And it's like, that's what made the house so comfortable, and nature controlled the temperature of the house. You know?
Yeah.
And I love bamboo and running. I actually had running bamboo on the edge. It was just concrete, couldn't go anywhere. But bamboo makes it really easy to manage because you just chop it down from the bottom. So if it gets too high covering your solar panels, it's really easy to manage.
Yeah, very true.
That's what I really like about bamboo in general.
Bamboo is a fantastic one, and it's been demonized because everyone thinks bamboo's running bamboo. But, you know, if you're worried about it, you've got clumping bamboo. But think of the resource value it gives you as well. You know, garden stakes, tree stakes. I mean, all this material that you can utilize. Like we've got to get it out of our minds. This cleanliness. You know. Yeah,
well, mate, so for me, bamboo, I used to use it in Sydney. We'll talk about this here because this is in your place, isn't it? Yeah, so for me, running bamboo or bamboo in general, I used to use it in my rocket stove to boil water for my coffee every morning. Light it really fast and
that's my place. Yeah.
So tell us more about this. So
okay. So this is it was a rocket stove mass heater, and I did change it to my adaptation of a batch box heater. So that has totally transformed the house in winter. It's a 1950s fibro box, glorified tent. And that's actually stopped it from going up and down. And it's a 50% reduction in wood heating. And it's just, it's beautiful, but it's just, I can get up and look outside. There may be a frost. I don't know. You know, that's how much it's changed the house.
Awesome.
It's beautiful, $150 to build. Yeah, I've got the skills to do it. It's insulated underneath, so you don't get the heat getting sucked out of the bottom. But it stored the heat in mass. And not rocket science to build. So the fire burns. It goes. There's a pipe inside that 200-litre drum, and then the fire goes up inside that pipe. The smoke goes down through a pipe like a chamber. They're actually clean out points that you can see, and then back up into the flue. And it could be 250 degrees at the drum, and it'd be about 35, 45 degrees going out of the flue up the top.
That's great. Yeah, because you capture all that heat. So
yeah, and the fire goes out, and it's still belting out heat, that mass.
Yeah, totally. So, what was the reason you went from a rocket stove to a batch box?
Just a little, probably. I think I should have put more flue in the pipe in the seed itself, and I just didn't have the heat, and plus feeding it. If you're not around it, rocket stoves, they burn out quite quickly, 10, 15 minutes, you've got to refuel it. So it was just that. And I seen this concept of the batch box mass heater. I actually used my old wood fire, and I just cut it down and reshaped it. So I don't have to split so much wood. I can get it going, put a piece of wood in, and it can just tick along.
So ideally, you're technically just using an old fireplace, and you're just redirecting the heat to go through the mass, and slow it up, a bit like with your geoengineering on the landscape. But you're doing that with the heat to store it in that mass overnight.
Yeah, and you've always got to remember you've got three forms of heat: convection, conduction, and radiation. We try to heat our house with convection heating, like air conditioners. Trying to heat with an air conditioner is pretty useless. Radiators are great, with hot water systems. I mean, they radiate heat out. And that's the thing about this mass heater. You've got the instant convection heating off the drum, but then you've got the mass, like the conduction when you touch it, and the radiation. So it really worked great. Yeah. And I've done a cob oven out the back as well, which is a fantastic addition as well. Pizza oven.
Yep. Excellent. So, mate, I know you've worked all over. So you mainly these days just work in Australia, or you still do international stuff?
No, I haven't been doing international, which is good because I actually absolutely got over sick of it. I ended up being 80% of my time was overseas. 2019, I went to 5 different countries, and really I was at a burnout stage. So been doing stuff in New South Wales, Tassie, Victoria. Yeah, a bit of I do online design, which has been good. Good for me and good for the client because they don't have to pay me to come because travel's a killer. Well, it's true, and I focus on that sort of basic mainframe design, and that's water and access and structure position. I really find that powerful because it's a good base map to start off.
Yep. Now, technology's definitely changed and made things a lot better to help accelerate. I know we're talking a lot about as a business, for what we're doing and building with the Off-Grid Tribe, it's about a time machine. I think that's the inevitable. Everyone wants a time machine, and I think that's what you're getting when you're working with someone with experience like yourself. You've had so much experience over the years. So tell us about your favorite project.
My favorite project. I've got one in Australia, but one's in the High Atlas of Morocco. At 1,800 meters, and it's called Ecole Vivienne. And it was a school built by a German lady who married a Berber guy, and she wanted a better education for her kids. So she started it, and people can't afford to pay. They go and volunteer at the school and do work, and that pays for their kids' tuition. But they had a permaculture garden, and in the school, ironically, it's 250 mil rainfall annually. It's very, very steep. It's right up in the High Atlas. Bloody freezing cold. They don't have wood to actually heat their houses. But the school flooded, and they asked me to come in through a Swiss aid organisation, and I come in. I've done my work, but got told that after a few weeks they had a rain event and stopped school flooding. Thank you very much. It was a great feeling. But what we done was these little fish scale patterns out of rock high up on the slope. It was a 60-degree slope. And the kids took that pattern and took it back to their farms and started using it to grow tree systems because we created the deposition system. And it's human scale, so kids can pick up these rocks, put it into a boomerang shape, and then we've created the sponge. So that's in a different part of Morocco, but that's sort of, but that was the most profound because it empowered the kids to go out onto their land and do that. Yeah, that's my favourite project.
No, awesome. Yeah, it's rewarding when you see someone take and learn those skills and implement it again. So
yeah. And I find human scale stuff like in third world, well, that's what you got to focus on because not everyone's got the money to throw it at a machine, you know.
Yeah. No, that's it.
And you know, Zach Weiss is another good earth surgeon from Elemental Ecosystems, and you know, he says get out there and he's got a good set of hands, and you know, does the work, which then I respect. But he says get out there on a shovel, you know, and actually create these little systems. Do it on a small scale first. That builds your confidence up. Because I wore one shovel. Well, I'm halfway through my second shovel, and I'm hoping to go through a third because I quite enjoy shovel work, you know. Well, it's sculpting, you know, it's creative work, and if it has a relationship to water, which is the vehicle of life, and creating deposition systems and building soil and fertility. On some of that photo that you had of Morocco back there, you know, we done the same bits of rock work in these little runnels where erosion was happening. We didn't plan anything. Life come in and created those little islands. So, you know, we just got to take that one step in the right direction. And often that's, for me, is with water, you know.
Yeah.
Don't drain the landscape. Pattern it out so it receives water. Yeah.
No, totally. So, mate, if you were, you know, speaking of that time machine and, you know, like ideally what we're all trying to do and help people is to, you know, build a time machine and accelerate their off-grid journeys and doing this stuff. So if you had a time machine to go back and change something you've done over the years, what would it be?
Like just for an example of this place, I would do, most of the earthworks in one hit and get that bones in. That's what I found. And I'm not saying do all earthworks or like do everything once, but get that artery in, get the basic shape of the site in. So think of your body as or water and access as an artery, because it's about energy. And if we get that in, then everything comes off that. It's not a building put in place, then you've got to bring a road in, or then you've got to work out where do we get water to it. Like how to, you know, put the foundations in, or at least plan for the foundations, you know. And that's where that sort of basic design comes in, because you can set it out as a guide. That's the big thing. Not doing too much earthworks in one hit, because, you know, weeds, depends how you want to manage it, but if you don't have time to cover it and get it to where you want it, that can be a problem. You know, yeah, like I really see starting with that basic theme as critical, because it stops the splatter. You know, so many people start here and start over there, and then how do we join it together? You know, as opposed to starting on a basic theme and then all the dots connected. Yeah.
Yep. No, good advice. So if, you know, I'm looking to build my off-grid dream, when do you think it would be a good time to engage like a permaculture consultant or someone like yourself?
Well, definitely, you know, if you haven't bought a property, pre-purchase consultancies are a good thing. Is it the right property? I have told people to sell a property. Not lightly. I had a sleepless night over it, but it was just a difficult property, and what he wanted to do didn't work. Simple, you know, don't spend thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean, I've heard some horrendous prices that some consultants charge, but like there is real value in a basic design. And if you start with the water and the access and structural position, get your house site in the right position. Get your orientation. Aspect is a big one when we come into the southern end of Australia. Aspect is critical because you're on the wrong side of if you're on the southwest slopes, aspect wise, well, you got no summer sun, and you got all the hot summer sun. So aspect is critical. Getting your house site in a good position, and like I say, about trying to get water above you if you can. So I getting your infrastructure in, is important. Where does your water, your service water, come from? Getting before you start planting trees out, run a water line in, a basic bones of a water line, so you can come off that. Getting these sort of foundational things in power. Power to build your site. I often think getting a shed up is one of the most critical things. Then you've got a roof to catch water off. You've got a roof to put solar on. You got storage, etc. Yeah.
So a lot of people.
Sorry,
a lot of the people we deal with, that's it. It's like block of land, shed goes up first, solar system, water, and then you can start living on the property and start doing things.
Yeah, and it's a pattern, isn't it? It is a pattern, and you would have seen that over time of what people do. The logical place is your shed, a couple of containers with a roof over the top, just some sort of basic structure up for storage, rainwater, solar.
There's a couple of really good quick options these days. I can even buy a solar system in a container these days that just dropped on a tilt tray, and in moments solar panels are up and you're on.
There you go. Yeah.
So, which is gold. So, okay, cool. So, mate, some good advice there. So, with building houses, what have you learned over the years of some things that you do different and share with your journey? And I know you're about to sell up and move on. Do you have any plans of what you're going to do different from this place to the next house?
Well, look, I see there's a few options. In some ways, I've got a portable sawmill. So I've got a Lucas sawmill, which is, ideally purchasing a property with some forestry on it to selectively manage is ideal. But in saying that, to throw up a basic steel frame, which is all engineered, council approved, and then infill, I see as a really quick option. The infill, whether it's hempcrete or light earth or something like that, is interesting. One of my friends is working on aircrete, which is and they're doing domes, and some of them are prefabbed and they're classed as demountable. So that's quite interesting. Apparently, every 10 mil of the aircrete has an R rating. So if you go 100 mil wall, that's an R10 of a rating for insulation qualities. Fire retardant. So which that's very interesting. Some are domed and some are vaulted, and they can sort of come together. So that's something.
Yeah, well, it's even little things like that just, I suppose, the way the industry is moving. And my brother's a plasterer, so he does chip rocking. So as a kid, I used to work with Dad on school holidays, and I was the only one that did, and I was the only one that never became a plasterer. So I think
probably a good thing.
I learned the lessons at a young age, But my brother said they're really struggling to find people in the industry. No one's doing the trades. TAFE are really struggling to get people through it. But I think it is one of those industries that really, that we don't really need, I think, in the future, because the way houses are getting built with hempcrete and straw bale and even aircrete, passive house designs, it's it's something we actually don't really need.
No, totally, mate. And the modern building industry, like I've worked in the building game for probably about 5 years, and it was always cruel building these houses facing the road, but they're a glorified tent still. Like brick veneer house is actually the opposite, isn't it? It should have the mass on the inside. So look, I totally agree with the hempcrete and all these new materials coming out, or old materials, maybe we could say, light earth, like say straw bale, all them sorts of things, and the lower skill, like if you want a beautiful plaster, well, you need to bring in someone with some skill on the trowel, but they're still achievable for the amateur. Once that frame's up, what I like about, like, even if you've done a timber frame and then you do an infill, you've got a roof. That's a big advantage. You know what I mean? You've got your buildings under cover, about putting up some quick frame and then infilling it. And then, if it's a steel frame, you can still screed off a wall. You can still make it all pretty like plaster. And it's, we've got to think of the health benefits too, the thing about the hemp and lime, the health benefits of it, like the no mold issues, which are huge in houses. Like, I do see a big industry in the future of retrofitting housing, because some of us can't afford to rebuild a house. But if we've got an old house, how do we retrofit it? How do we? Because they say about the Insawall. Well, once the Insawall gets all the dust particles in, it loses its value anyway. Yeah. So how do we strip off the wall and do, whether it's aircrete or hempcrete or something in that stud frame? So I see a huge industry for that, and I see one of the big important things is having from your kitchen ease of access to your garden. Because if people don't see their garden, they don't pick their garden, they don't eat from it, So we need to retrofit our houses or with design in mind, so we've got easy access to the outdoor environment, so we get the sustenance we need. Because a lot of people going off grid actually want real food. It's a critical part of it.
Yep. So on that with off grid, a lot of, like I said, a lot of my customers are selling up and they do it the second time. And for me, I've been doing a lot of research and focus on community. So have you ever lived on a community or worked on communities? What's your opinion on communities and people going rurally off grid together?
Well, look, I think it's something that we need to do. The closest I've lived to on a community was I volunteered at the Permaculture Research Institute for a year and a half, and that was pretty well communal living. For 12 months of that was on the famous Tagari farm in Tioga, New South Wales, and then the other 6 months was at Zaytuna farm. Which was, back then. But they were communal living. So I've had that experience, you could say, and teaching courses and stuff like that. Look, as long as the foundation, from my point of view, as long as the foundation's in place, so it's not all what they call fuzzy beginnings, messy endings, and people have got an exit strategy, we have to do it. Like Bill talks about, we've sort of got this myth of self-sufficiency, which is a bit of a myth, because we can't produce everything that we need, but we can have self-reliance, and the only way we have self-reliance is with community. So we have to build, and we need diversity. I often say when Australians, the diversity of Australians grow food together and actually cook together, what an incredible culture that will be. And but going off grid, self-responsibility, mate. It's huge. It's connected to sovereignty. So
I tell you, I think people sort of forget that. You can do so much more together than going off doing things up by yourself. So and a lot of people, they think the off-grid dream, going up by doing it by themselves and have no neighbours and being around. And I see a lot of my customers, they're lonely. They can't go on holidays. They've got everything to look after. This big, the dream's not what they thought it would be. So people end up selling up and moving back in town.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, mate. I mean, think as soon as you get animal systems, well, then you're tired. You can't leave. We need to build a new model. And if you guys have got, that sort of structure in place to make it happen, so people feel secure, they feel valued, and some sort of decision-making process, then it's just hugely essential to that's the way we move.
No, totally. I have a dream. I call it my caravan park because I don't really have anything else to sort of describe it as good. But I have this vision of building a gated community, like a caravan park, where, you know, it's full of a heap of residents live together, grow their food. There's a restaurant inside that, you know, people can eat and share and cook from that there. And it's just a real, community that works together. And, you know, we have a row of houses which are hemp and some are straw bale and some are mud brick. And, you know, a bit like a caravan park, we get the permanent residents, and then you've got people that come and stay and experience the hemp or the straw bale and then go back and build with it, you know. So
absolutely, mate. We need to link tourism into what we do as a means of education, you know, because people can read about it, but, you know, you sit someone down and get them to taste real food, you know, a salad straight out of the garden, a beautiful bit of animal, you know, protein that's been cared for and nurtured and doesn't have any toxins in it from Roundup or whatever. Like, you know, it's my take, but clean meat, you know, you get the experience of that. Or, you know, these educational processes are foundational because it's transforming.
Yep. And it's the same with housing. Like, you don't realize, and when you go live, like, one of the big things for us, we did the house at a magnesium oxide board here, and we used clay-based paints, and they're negative charge, so dust doesn't actually stick to the walls. Just even little things like that. And I suppose, when people live in a house and get to experience and see all these little things that, you know, you don't do in a natural building house compared to a typical house. Like, mate, a hemp house, in my opinion, like mold. The Northern Rivers is full of mold. It's a nightmare. You know, like we've chopped loads of trees in our place to get the sun in. You know, for solar and also to stop the mold from growing, because the place was, you know, in shade 6 months of the year, you know. So but having a natural build and all those sort of things really add up and just change your life. You're not all the time cleaning mold. Your house just works, you know. It's the way it should be.
You're physically and mentally healthy, though. And this is where I sort of, you know, connecting that living system around the house, not over the top of the house, as you say, but around the house, so we've got an environment. You know? It's hugely powerful.
No, totally. Yeah. I find, like, for us, customers going off grid with solar, because, you know, that's sort of what we specialize in. But the people that grow food or really connected with nature really understand solar, because they understand when the sun's out, they've got power. And you see people that haven't really had that experience living off grid and working with nature. They're the people who get issues where it's like, I've got no solar power, things haven't worked, why not? You know, like, you know, so it's such a powerful thing to learn to work with nature in all aspects.
Well, I certainly know that by working with water, you do the wrong thing and it's going to be gone. So, you know, you lose all your work because the force of water is incredible. But you put it in a pattern that pacifies it, well, then it becomes gentle.
No, totally. So, mate, could you give us some tips and examples, I suppose, of how to create this green oasis on a budget? Like, I think a lot of people, one of the things I see that go off grid, and I think I see more people these days with a bit more of a budget. But for those people that want to go off grid and budget and create, you know, an amazing green oasis, like, what's some tips you'd recommend for that?
Biggest one is build your plant bank, you know, because think of the number, think of the expense of buying in plants. You know, look at bamboo. Get a few pots of bamboo, and then once that's in the ground in a few years, you divide that up, off you go. But to buy them individually, you know, plants that you can do root divisions, you know, berries, like once you've got a few, you've got them. I've just got a wheelbarrow load of strawberries running, so I've pulled out and I'm giving away. So start building your plant bank now. Learn grafting, learn how to take cuttings, get a little nursery set up is a critical one. Bill Mollison, the founder of Permaculture, or co-founder, said, let your site demonstrate its evolution. So go out and plant 100 different species in your immediate zone, and then from them species, work out what species are suited to this environment, and then take them out onto the broadacre. So they have a thing called, like, Mark Shepherd, which is from Restoration Ag. He has a system called Stun, which is simply totally utter neglect. So plant them and forget them, because you know them plants are going to survive. You don't have to care and nurture for them. whereas the more sensitive ones you bring around your house. So these are the big things. Pattern the landscape out so it receives water. Wood chips are a great one. Often they're free around the landscape. Even if you can't afford to do earthworks, run a line of wood chips around and give that 6 months, then plant trees into it. You've created a little swale. You've created a deposition system. Done. The job's done. The soil starts to remediate because you've got an organic sponge on it. So that's what I would do. But pattern it out if you can afford it. It's amazing what you can do with a shovel and a mattock. And a bit of mind, a bit of vision. I always say to people when they're doing hard work, you never look at the end until you're halfway. Once you're halfway, then you can look at the end. But until you're halfway, you always got to look behind you. I'm nearly a quarter of the way. It's a psychological game.
Yeah.
But it's amazing what you can be doing. On a budget. Me being self-employed. I've done this place on a budget, and I've done a lot with a shovel. All my gardens are just on a shovel, shovel and fork, mattock. If you want a decent garden bed, put it out on a pattern. So you got about 800 wide bed, 450 footpath. Take the footpath out on top of the garden bed, fork it over. There's your bed. There's a garden. Just a little bit of labour, and you can stop going to the gym so much and put a bit of work in. But if you do it where it's close to where you're interacting daily, you get the reward. You get the reward of seeing life come in and eating the food. So that effort's really, it's nothing in the end. You can do a lot. There's a lot of trees you can take by cuttings. Mulberries, for example, Go out and find some road mulberries. Take some cuttings like willow if you want to use them poplar.
Now, it's a good example. A mate of mine, he lives in Brisbane, and he got 50 different bamboo species from cuttings just walking around the streets in Brisbane. And he's mad about growing cuttings and all that sort of stuff and making it all happen. And is it a property at the back of Kempsey, Mid North Coast, a big greenhouse, and he would take them down there, transport them to the greenhouse, and harden them up and good to go. So
get a little nursery up is a critical one. Build your plant bank so you're not having to go out and buy it. Connect up with some local growers group, whether it's a permaculture group, whatever you want to do, because then you can get not only seeds but also cuttings and root divisions and all that from the local area.
Definitely. So we've learned some hard lessons of transporting stuff up. Not surviving.
Well, you got to try, mate.
That's it. Give it a go. So awesome. Well, mate, thank you. I really appreciate that. So we'll down in the description, all Dave's links will be if you want to get in contact with Dave and have a chat with Dave and ask him any questions. And mate, is there anything else you'd like to add before we head off?
No, just to enjoy the journey, guys. We've got to be a bit brave in life. I think Mike's hit on a really important point. Is sort of going off grid and being by yourself. We need some form of community because that's where the true self-reliance comes from. I think that's very powerful, and that scares a lot of people because it's locking in with other people. But if we've got the same foundations and desires for life, well, then that should make it easier to come to an agreement to move forward.
That's one of the things. We had a couple of projects at the moment that we're working on, the constitution and how we structure it, and we're actually looking at more of a long-term rental agreement, because I think one of the biggest things, especially with MOs, is you pretty much with an MO you're really limiting your buyers because you need to find cash buyers, and these days you need to find people with $600 $1 million cash sitting in the bank they can just buy because it's part of a company and all that infrastructure there. So we've been looking at more long-term rentals that ideally with a community that starts off where everyone rents the land. We've got investors that are going to buy the land. We'll do the water access and structure plan, the mainframe, and then start off as rentals, and people start the rentals, and over a period of time, people then can buy the private houses on the community, or you offer a lot more diversity with renting. And I think, it's actually one of those things, like for me, I'm a mad motorbike rider, and I've since the floods, there's a lot of bikes I've lost and I need to replace. But I thought about there's these days I can just rent and hire bikes for the weekend. Like instead of spending $50,000 on a couple of the bikes I lost before, I can just go spend $400 on a weekend, and I might do 4 weekends a year, and there's $1,600 I've spent rather than 50 grand sitting in the shed I need to maintain, look after.
And that's a really good point though, Mike, because think of the infrastructure, the mechanical machinery we have develop a property, tractor, what's that, 50 grand, it could be less, whatever, plus your implements, whatever. But how much are you using that? So sort of bringing in that community tie or the rental, even an excavator is a bloody brilliant machine to have. But even a small one, you're looking at 30 grand. But yeah, you could, you can do all your trenching, you can do all your earthworks, you can have a grab on it for forestry. But how do you justify buying that and having it sitting there? I've got my sawmill there, and I've got, to be honest with you, I haven't used it in years, which is a shame. Because, I don't have access to timber. And, I'm not going to drag some stuff out of the bush. Or, I don't need it at the moment. But that cost is there to bring a piece of machinery. If it was in a loose community where it could be put to work, then, that makes sense,
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I think the sharing economy is something that I think to work on the other thing I think about was how many resources do we save from actually doing this stuff? If every 10 properties have a Lucas sawmill, well, what if we have one and we all share it and look after it? And same with cars, like electric cars, I don't think electric cars is a solution for the future, but they're great. And if we had one to share between a lot of different people and carpooling and things like that, there's a lot of good things we can do. But everyone sort of wants to sit in a car by themselves and have their own private space and be depressed in life.
Not wrong. Well, that's why they need to get in the garden.
Exactly. So, did someone famous once say that you can solve the world's problem in the garden?
Yeah. Very true, mate. Well, there's a lot of peace to be found in the garden, and
that's it.
Your food. That's right, mate.
Definitely,
it's a big joy in life. And a sense of security. Start producing some of your food. Well, nutritional values up. All them sort of things. So, that's excellent stuff, mate. Good on you, and congratulations for taking on the podcast realm and helping people not make so many mistakes at the beginning,
Mate, thank you. And thank you for sharing your wisdom so we can help people out and not make those mistakes. We still do sometimes, but slowly learn. All good, mate. Now, we've got to have fun, as Bill said, we've got to have fun in life. So, that's it.
All good, mate.
Experience is one of those things you wish you had just before you got it. So,
not wrong, mate. Absolutely. And that's why I come in to say, good access is good interaction,
Yep.
Because I've seen so many people on big pieces of land that they never actually go to areas because they don't access them.
Exactly. So, awesome. All right, mate.
All good, mate.
Thank you.
No worries. Pleasure.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you for joining. We appreciate your time and attention. We hope you found this content inspiring and informative. Make sure to subscribe to stay updated with the latest captivating contents. We invite you to join the conversation, share your thoughts, and actively engage with our community. Visit theoffgridtribe.com. Together, let's embrace the power of sustainable living and work towards creating a greener, more harmonious future for our planet. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this content with others who are passionate about sustainable living. Thank you for your support, and we look forward to embarking on this incredible journey with you.